The vast halls of the Empress's flagship were eerily silent. Once these corridors had echoed with the steps of thousands of loyal soldiers, advisors, and servants. Now the air smelled of smoke, burnt circuits, and despair. Outside the reinforced walls, enemy ships moved like shadows through the void, closing in on the heart of the alien empire. The Empress, proud and regal, stood alone on the bridge, her multifaceted eyes scanning the fleet with a mixture of anger and disbelief. How could this happen? She whispered to herself. Her voice carried across the bridge, empty except for the soft hum of failing machinery. All my advisors, my generals, they all abandoned me. In truth, the betrayal had been complete. Colonies that once bowed to her orders had declared independence. Trusted officers had defected, offering intelligence to the rebels. The Empress had tried to send messages, negotiate, or appeal to loyalty, but every attempt had been met with silence or outright hostility. Her empire was falling and she was left isolated. And yet, one figure moved steadily through the chaos. Captain Marcus, a human soldier, walked with calm determination across the bridge. His armor was scratched and scorched, showing signs of every skirmish he had survived in the past weeks. His dark eyes held a quiet intensity, the kind that comes from knowing the value of life and the weight of duty. Unlike the others, he did not look to escape, to hide, or to abandon the Empress. Captain Marcus, the Empress said, her voice both cold and wary. Why are you still here? Everyone else has fled. My own people have turned against me. Why would a human remain? Marcus bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect he had learned from studying alien customs. Because, Your Majesty, a soldier does not abandon someone they are sworn to protect. No matter who turns away, I will stay. The Empress studied him for a long moment. Her pride wanted to reject him, to think that humans were incapable of loyalty, that their reputation for self-interest was true, but she could see it in his posture, the steadiness in his gaze, the quiet confidence that radiated from him. He meant every word. Humans, she muttered. I thought you were only useful for muscle and firepower. I never imagined loyalty. Marcus's lips curved into a faint smile. Sometimes loyalty is the most powerful weapon of all. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp alarm. The flagship shook violently as enemy fire struck its outer hull. Sparks rained from overhead conduits and the lights flickered. The Empress gritted her teeth. She had faced threats before, but this was not a normal battle. Her own people had turned against her, and now mercenaries, rebels, and bounty hunters hunted her as though she were prey. Marcus sprang into action. He ran to the control console, his fingers flying over the controls with skill and precision. Shields are holding at 50%, but they won't last long. We need to maneuver before the main fleet surrounds us. The Empress watched him work. There was something remarkable about humans, she realized. They did not panic in the face of danger. They adapted. They improvised. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, Marcus's mind was calm, calculating, alive. Prepare the escape pods, he said, though he knew he would not abandon the Empress. If the hull is breached, we must evacuate. Your life is more valuable than any ship. She nodded, her pride stung by the reminder that she might need saving. Yet even as she considered escape, she felt a strange warmth in knowing that at least one being in the galaxy still stood by her. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by alarms and the distant thrum of enemy engines. Marcus and the Empress moved through the command deck, issuing orders to the few remaining crew members. Many of them had lost hope, their morale shattered by betrayal. Some hesitated, refusing to act, but Marcus did not scold them. Instead, he led by example, showing calm and courage that inspired others to act. Slowly, the crew began to respond. Finally, the flagship emerged from a dense asteroid belt, battered but not destroyed. Outside, the rebel fleet glinted in the light of a distant star, their numbers overwhelming. The Empress felt a pang of fear. Her throne, her power, and her legacy were all in jeopardy. And yet Marcus remained by her side, calm and unyielding. You trust me? He asked quietly. The Empress turned to him, her eyes sharp but curious. I do not know if I can, but I have no choice. I see now that you will not abandon me. Marcus nodded. Then let us survive first. Then we can think about reclaiming what is ours. For the first time in weeks, the Empress allowed herself a faint smile. It was not joy, not relief, but a recognition of something important. Even in a galaxy full of betrayal, humans could be dependable. They could be courageous. They could be honorable. Night fell across the flagship and the stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport. Marcus took a moment to stand beside the Empress, looking out at the void. "You are not alone," he said simply. "I am alone," she replied softly. "Everyone has abandoned me." "Not everyone," Marcus said. "Not me." The Empress felt an unfamiliar sensation stir within her. Gratitude, respect, perhaps even hope. It was strange to feel trust in anyone after so many betrayals, but she could not deny it. This human had proven something rare. He valued honor over self-interest. He valued life over politics. He valued her, even though the galaxy had turned against her. The following days were a test of endurance. Marcus organized patrols, repaired damaged systems, and trained the remaining crew. He also spent time with the Empress, explaining human tactics and sharing stories of bravery and ingenuity from his home world. Slowly, she began to see him not only as a protector, but as a teacher, someone who could show her the strengths of humanity. Then came the first major encounter. A rebel cruiser dropped out of hyperspace near the flagship, weapons primed. The Empress froze, but Marcus acted without hesitation. He directed the ship's defenses, coordinating with the remaining crew to launch countermeasures. In the chaos, he moved across the deck, repairing damaged systems, guiding crew members, and even facing enemy boarding drones with courage that bordered on reckless. The Empress watched in awe. She had led battles before, commanded fleets, and faced enemies without number. Yet she had never seen loyalty or bravery like this from any being outside her species. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in Marcus's case, that unpredictability had saved lives. When the battle ended, the rebel cruiser retreated, damaged but not destroyed. Marcus stood beside the Empress, sweat on his brow, his armor scorched but his spirit unbroken. "We survived," he said simply. "Yes," she replied, her voice softer than before. "Because you stayed." A quiet understanding passed between them. In that moment, the Empress realized that loyalty was more than words. It was action, courage, and sacrifice. And Marcus, the human soldier who had refused to abandon her, embodied all of it. For the first time in weeks, the Empress felt a spark of hope. She did not know how she would reclaim her empire, how she would survive the betrayals and attacks to come, but she knew this. As long as Marcus stayed by her side, she had a chance. A real chance. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the hull of the flagship, cold and indifferent. But within those walls, a new bond was forming. One that might change not just the fate of an Empress, but the perception of humanity across the galaxy. Marcus did not speak of honor, duty, or glory. He simply stayed, acted with courage, and proved that even when everyone else abandoned someone, loyalty and bravery could shine like a beacon in the darkness. And the Empress, proud, regal, and battle-worn, finally began to understand that sometimes the greatest strength did not come from fleets, power, or titles, but from one being willing to stand by you when all else has turned away. The galaxy outside continued its chaos. Rebels, traitors, and mercenaries swirled in a storm of conflict. But inside the flagship, a human soldier stood firm beside the Empress. And for the first time, she no longer felt completely alone. The Empress watched the stars streak past as the flagship moved through the void, the hum of the engines filling the silence between them. Despite their narrow escape, she did not feel safe. Every shadow, every glimmer of light reminded her that enemies were out there, everywhere. She had lost almost everything, her advisors, her generals, her fleet. Now only a handful of loyal crew remained, and a human soldier who refused to leave her side. Marcus leaned against the railing, arms crossed, watching the navigation screens. He was calm, almost unnervingly so, considering the situation. "We need to find a safe place," he said finally. "Somewhere the enemy won't think to look for us." The Empress turned to him, her alien eyes sharp and calculating. "Do you think such a place exists?" Marcus shrugged. "It has to. We can't stay here. This ship is too large and too obvious. Rebels will be watching every major sector. If we can get to an uncharted system, we can rest, repair, and plan our next move." She nodded slowly, impressed. Humans seem to have an instinct for survival that went beyond training or technology. Marcus's mind worked differently than hers or her species' standard military thinkers. Where she had thought in rigid hierarchies and expected obedience, he thought in possibilities, in chances, in ways to survive when the world seemed lost. The journey was long. Days passed with little communication from the outside world. Sensors occasionally picked up distant signals, fragments of rebel fleets, rogue transmissions, and mercenary communications, but none were close enough to threaten them immediately. During this time, Marcus and the Empress spent hours walking the corridors together, discussing strategies and survival. "You have fought in many battles," the Empress said one day, her voice quiet as they walked past the observation deck. "I do not understand humans completely, but I have seen your courage. Why do you fight so hard even when survival seems unlikely?" Marcus looked out at the void, thinking, "Because life is worth protecting, because loyalty matters, and because giving up is never an option if someone depends on you." The Empress regarded him silently. Loyalty, dependability, strength. These were concepts she had believed only her species could embody. Yet Marcus proved her wrong. For the first time, she felt a mixture of respect and something she did not yet name. Their conversation was interrupted by the sudden blare of alarms. A rebel scout ship had appeared on long-range sensors, closing in quickly. Marcus's eyes narrowed. They must have been tracking us. "Prepare the defensive systems and get ready for evasive maneuvers. We can't let them pin us down." The Empress moved to his side, instinctively taking command of what little crew remained. "What is your plan, human?" she asked. Marcus pointed to a cluster of asteroids nearby. "We fly through the belt. Their sensors are good, but their maneuvering will be slower than ours. If we time it right, they will lose us in the debris." The crew moved under his direction, repositioning the ship while the Empress oversaw communications and monitoring systems. The flagship shook as debris scraped the outer hull, but Marcus's calculations were precise. He guided the ship through narrow openings, dodging massive asteroids and avoiding direct fire from the scout ship. Finally, the enemy was left behind, struggling to follow through the dense asteroid field. The Empress allowed herself a rare sigh of relief. "Impressive," she admitted quietly. "I would never have thought of that." Marcus smiled faintly. "Humans have a way of looking at problems from different angles. Sometimes it saves lives." For several days, they remained hidden within the asteroid belt, repairing the ship and restoring energy to the damaged shields. Marcus trained the remaining crew, teaching them how to act quickly and efficiently. He encouraged them to think for themselves, to improvise, and to trust one another. Slowly, morale began to rise, even among those who had once considered abandoning the Empress. During one quiet evening, the Empress approached Marcus as he repaired a damaged energy conduit. She watched him for a moment, the soft glow of the repair lights reflecting in her alien eyes. "You do not tire," she said. "I do," he admitted. "But I have to keep going. There is no other choice." "You are unlike any human I have known," she said. "Your determination, it is admirable. I do not know if it is courage or foolishness." Marcus chuckled softly. "Perhaps a bit of both. But in situations like this, courage often looks like foolishness to others." The Empress studied him silently. She did not speak again, but the seed of trust had grown deeper. She realized that Marcus was not just a soldier. He was a force that could not be swayed by fear or betrayal. He had chosen to stand by her, even when the galaxy had turned against her. Days later, the calm was shattered by the arrival of a much larger rebel force. Sensors detected multiple ships converging on their location, faster and stronger than the earlier scout. Panic rippled through the crew, but Marcus did not flinch. "Listen," he said firmly, gathering everyone in the main control room. "We are outnumbered, yes, but we are not outmatched. Follow my lead. We will survive and we will escape." The Empress watched him, her heart pounding. She realized she had begun to depend on this human in ways she could not have predicted. He was not only a protector, he was a strategist, a teacher, and a constant presence in a galaxy that had become hostile. Marcus turned to her. "Your Majesty, I need you to trust me completely." "Can you do that?" She hesitated. Trust had been broken so many times, yet she saw the sincerity in his eyes, the steadiness that had guided them this far. "I will try," she said. The battle that followed was intense. Rebel ships fired relentlessly, lasers cutting across the void. Marcus coordinated the flagship's defenses, rerouted power to shields, and directed crew members to counterattack. He moved with calm precision, even when the hull shook violently. At one point, a boarding party breached the flagship. Marcus grabbed a plasma rifle and led a small group to intercept the intruders. The Empress followed, not as a fighter, but as a leader, directing remaining crew members to safety and securing critical systems. Together they worked seamlessly, a team born of necessity and trust. When the battle ended, the flagship had survived, though battered. The rebel force retreated, unable to destroy the ship or capture the Empress. Marcus returned to her side, wiping sweat from his brow. "We made it," he said simply. "Yes," the Empress replied, "because you did not abandon me." In the quiet after the battle, the Empress walked the corridors alone, reflecting on the events. She realized that she had underestimated humans. They were strong, resilient, and capable of courage she had never imagined. And this human soldier, Marcus, had proven the greatest strength of all: loyalty. The next morning, Marcus approached her. "We need to plan our next move," he said. "We cannot stay here forever. The enemy will return," the Empress nodded. "I understand. Where will we go?" Marcus pointed to a distant system, uncharted and hidden in a nebula. "There, it is remote. No one expects anyone to travel through the nebula, and the clouds will hide our signature. We can repair the ship fully and prepare for the next stage." The Empress studied him. "You think humans are clever enough to survive against any odds?" Marcus smiled faintly. "We have to be. And sometimes cleverness is all we have when everything else is gone." The Empress considered his words. For the first time, she felt a spark of hope. Perhaps she could survive, reclaim her empire, and restore order. Not alone, but with Marcus by her side. His presence gave her courage she had not known she still possessed. As they prepared to leave the asteroid field, the Empress stood on the observation deck looking at the stars. "Humans," she whispered more to herself than to him. "Perhaps you are more remarkable than I ever imagined." Marcus approached silently. "You are not alone," he said again. "Not while I am here." She turned to him, her alien features softening in a rare display of emotion. "Then we will survive," she said more firmly than before. Together, outside the nebula awaited, swirling with colors and dangers alike. Within the flagship, a human soldier and an alien Empress prepared to face the unknown, united by trust, courage, and a bond that neither betrayal nor fear could break. And for the first time in many weeks, the Empress allowed herself to believe that the galaxy could still hold hope, not just for her, but for all those who refused to abandon what was right. The nebula stretched across the void like a cloud of color and mystery, swirling with red and purple gases that reflected distant starlight. To the untrained eye, it looked beautiful, even peaceful. But the Empress knew better. Nebulas were unpredictable, full of electromagnetic storms and hidden dangers. Most ships avoided them, which was exactly why Marcus had chosen this route. The Empress stood at the observation deck, staring at the swirling gases. "It is dangerous," she said. "We could lose the ship in there." Marcus leaned beside her, calm as ever. "Danger is part of survival. If we navigate carefully, the nebula will hide us from the enemy. They won't expect us here." She nodded, though a flicker of doubt crossed her features. Humans had a different way of thinking, one that often seemed reckless to her species. But Marcus had proven himself time and again. He had saved her, saved the ship, and shown her the value of trust. Days passed inside the nebula. The ship moved slowly, carefully threading its way through dense pockets of gas and hidden asteroids. Inside, the Empress and Marcus worked together more closely than ever. Marcus taught her crew survival techniques, ways to repair damaged systems, and strategies for anticipating attacks. The Empress, in turn, shared her knowledge of alien technology and leadership, teaching Marcus the subtleties of commanding a fleet, even one as fractured as theirs. During one evening, as the ship drifted in the nebula's dim light, the Empress called Marcus to the observation deck. She had been thinking about the past weeks, the betrayals, and the battles they had endured. "Tell me," she said quietly, "why do humans value loyalty so highly? You risk your life for me, someone from another species, when nothing in your world requires it." Marcus leaned on the railing, looking at the swirling gases outside. "Because loyalty is what makes us strong. It's what keeps us alive when everything else fails. If someone depends on you, you don't leave them. You protect them, even if it costs you everything." The Empress watched him in silence. His words were simple, but they carried weight she had not expected. She had lived among advisors who spoke in complex strategies and manipulative politics. Yet Marcus's honesty struck deeper than any counsel she had ever received. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. The Empress and Marcus rushed to the control room. Sensors had detected an unknown vessel, cloaked but moving fast, approaching their position. "Enemy?" she asked. Marcus studied the readings. "Possibly, but the technology doesn't match the rebels we know. This could be mercenaries or someone taking advantage of the chaos in the galaxy. Either way, we need to be ready." The Empress watched him coordinate the crew, issuing orders with precision. Marcus's calmness was infectious. The few remaining crew members, once shaken and fearful, now followed him without question. His strategies were quick, creative, and effective, allowing the ship to evade initial detection and avoid any direct attack. Hours later, the vessel revealed itself. A small, sleek ship designed for speed and infiltration. It tried to match their course, but Marcus anticipated every maneuver. He directed the Empress's flagship through a maze of asteroid fragments inside the nebula, using the dense gases to hide their signature. The intruder ship struggled to keep up, firing sporadically but missing almost entirely. At one point, a concentrated blast struck the flagship's engine housing. Sparks flew and the ship lurched violently. The Empress's heart pounded. "We are damaged," she shouted. Marcus did not flinch. "Divert power to auxiliary engines. Shield the hull. We can make it." He moved through the control room, giving orders, adjusting systems, and guiding the crew. Every action was precise, every decision thoughtful. The Empress felt a growing admiration. Marcus was not only brave, he was brilliant under pressure. Finally, the enemy ship broke off the pursuit, frustrated by the flagship's unpredictable maneuvers. The Empress allowed herself a deep breath, relief mixing with awe. "You are remarkable," she said, turning to Marcus. He shrugged. "I just do what is necessary." "No," she replied firmly. "It is more than that. You do not panic. You think clearly when everyone else would falter. You are unlike anyone I have ever known." Marcus met her gaze, his expression calm but sincere. "Humans survive by thinking differently. We adapt. And sometimes that makes the difference between life and death." The Empress looked at him silently. There was something about humans, about Marcus specifically, that she had underestimated. Their strength was not in numbers or technology. It was in courage, loyalty, and ingenuity. For the next few days, the ship remained hidden within the nebula. Marcus took the time to train the remaining crew more intensively, showing them how to repair damaged systems quickly, anticipate attacks, and cooperate as a unit. The Empress observed quietly, learning how human adaptability could complement alien technology. One night, while the ship floated silently, Marcus approached the Empress. "We need to discuss our next move," he said. "We can't hide here forever. The enemy will keep searching," she nodded. "Where should we go?" Marcus pointed to a distant star cluster, far from known trade routes or colonies. "There, it is uncharted. Few would dare venture through the cluster, and it offers natural cover for repairs and planning." The Empress studied him. "You think humans can survive anywhere?" Marcus smiled faintly. "We have to. And sometimes, survival depends on creativity more than strength." The Empress felt a small spark of hope. Perhaps she could endure, perhaps even reclaim her empire with Marcus by her side. She realized she had begun to rely on him, not just for protection but for guidance, insight, and courage. Days later, as they navigated through the star cluster, the ship encountered a field of drifting asteroids, some massive, some small, moving unpredictably. Marcus immediately took control of the situation, issuing commands, rerouting power, and guiding the flagship through narrow passages with skill. The Empress watched him, silently impressed. "You are fearless," she said quietly. "I am careful," he replied. "Fear is natural, but letting it control you is dangerous. You focus on what can be done, not what might happen." The Empress considered his words. Her species often relied on overwhelming power and strict control. Humans, she realized, relied on quick thinking, adaptation, and courage under pressure. Perhaps that was why Marcus had survived when others would have failed. That night, as the flagship rested in a hidden cove behind a massive asteroid, the Empress walked the corridors alone. She thought about the battles, the betrayals, and the small human who had stood by her through everything. Marcus had proven that even when the galaxy abandoned someone, loyalty and bravery could endure. She found him repairing one of the ship's damaged energy conduits. Sparks flew as he worked, but he did not notice her presence. "Marcus," she said softly. He looked up, smiling faintly. "Your Majesty, you have changed my view of humans," she said. I believed in strength, numbers, and power, but you have shown me something different: courage, loyalty, ingenuity. Marcus shook his head. I just do what I can. Survival is about more than just fighting. It's about thinking, adapting, and helping others when you can. The Empress studied him for a long moment. You are more than a soldier. You are a protector, perhaps even more. Marcus looked away, modest but unwavering. I am here to protect you. That is my duty. And sometimes duty is all that matters. The Empress felt a rare emotion stir within her. Trust. Not just reliance, but true trust. She had believed in strategy, technology, and power. But Marcus had shown her that loyalty and courage could surpass all of these. As the flagship floated quietly in the hidden cove, surrounded by the swirling colors of the star cluster, the Empress realized that she was not alone. Not while Marcus stayed by her side. Not while someone valued her life, her safety, and her survival enough to risk everything for her. And for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe that the future was not completely lost. Perhaps with this human soldier beside her, she could endure anything the galaxy threw at her. Outside, the nebula glimmered with stars, silent and beautiful. Inside the flagship, a bond was forming that would carry them through battles, betrayals, and the unknown challenges ahead. Marcus, the human soldier, had chosen to stand by an alien Empress when everyone else had abandoned her. And that choice, simple yet profound, might be the key to survival. Not just for the Empress, but for the future of her empire. The hidden star cluster had offered them safety for days, but Marcus knew it would not last. The galaxy was vast, yet enemies were relentless. The rebels who had abandoned the Empress were still hunting her, and mercenaries often followed trails wherever they could profit. Hiding had worked for now, but eventually, they would need to move, to act, and to face the threats that stalked them. Marcus stood on the observation deck, looking at the distant points of light scattered across the cluster. His mind worked rapidly, considering the strategies they could use, the paths they could take, and the resources they could gather. The Empress joined him silently, her regal posture stiff but her eyes thoughtful. She had been learning from Marcus, observing his decisions and beginning to understand human strengths in ways she had never imagined. You think we are ready? She asked quietly. Marcus turned to her. Ready isn't the word I would use, but we are prepared as we can be. You have a small crew who trust you, and a ship that is repaired enough to move. That is more than most would have in our situation. The Empress studied him, seeing the calm determination that had carried them through so many dangers. She realized she had begun to rely not only on his protection but on his judgment. Humans, she thought, had a strange way of seeing solutions where others only saw danger, and Marcus embodied that quality perfectly. Suddenly, alarms blared across the ship. Sensors detected multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the cluster. Marcus rushed to the control panel. Rebels and mercenaries, he said grimly. They found us. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We will need every advantage we have. The Empress moved to his side, her mind already calculating. How many? Marcus checked the readings. Too many to fight head-on. At least 5 cruisers plus smaller attack craft. We cannot outrun them all in open space. We need to use the cluster to our advantage. He directed the flagship into a dense portion of the cluster, where thick clouds of gas and massive asteroid fragments created a natural maze. Enemy scanners struggled to detect them, and weapons had to be fired with extreme care. The flagship shook as debris scraped against the hull, but Marcus's calm direction allowed the crew to navigate the hazards with precision. Divert power to shields and thrusters, he commanded. Use the clouds to hide our movements. We will make it through if everyone follows orders. The Empress observed him in awe. Humans were unpredictable, yet in moments of extreme danger they became remarkably effective. Marcus's mind seemed to work in 3 steps at once, thinking ahead, reacting to immediate threats, and guiding others. She realized that the galaxy had underestimated humans, and that Marcus's ingenuity could change the outcome of battles that her people had thought hopeless. Hours passed as they threaded the flagship through the treacherous maze. Small skirmishes erupted when enemy scouts discovered their position, but Marcus's quick thinking allowed the ship to escape each encounter. The Empress was no longer merely a passenger or a leader watching from afar. She was active, coordinating with Marcus, learning how to anticipate enemy moves and use the environment to their advantage. Finally, they reached a quiet sector deep within the cluster. The flagship's hull bore scratches and minor damage, but it had survived. The Empress allowed herself a moment to breathe, her pride tempered by relief. "You did well," she said quietly to Marcus. He shook his head. "We did well. The crew followed my orders, and you made decisions that saved lives. This was a team effort." The Empress looked at him thoughtfully. "Humans do not always work as a team," she said. "But you make them work together." Marcus smiled faintly. "Leadership is about example. You show courage, clarity, and trust, and others follow. It works for humans and apparently for aliens too." For the next few days, they repaired the ship fully and prepared for the next stage of their journey. Marcus trained the crew more intensely, showing them how to anticipate attacks, improvise repairs, and coordinate as a unit. The Empress observed, learning the subtle differences between human and alien strategy. She realized that combining their strengths could create a force stronger than any she had commanded before. During a quiet evening, the Empress approached Marcus. "I do not understand humans completely," she admitted. "You risk everything for loyalty, for honor, for duty. Many would see it as foolish, but you are consistent, always." Marcus looked at her calmly. "Sometimes consistency is the key to survival. Chaos surrounds us, but you can control what you can. You can protect who you choose. And sometimes that is enough to change the outcome." The Empress considered his words. She had lived in a society that valued strategy, power, and manipulation. But Marcus's simple philosophy, courage, loyalty, action, had proven more effective in life or death situations than any political maneuver or fleet movement she had commanded. Their reflection was interrupted by sensors detecting movement outside. A small strike force of enemy ships had discovered their location and moved in silently. Marcus acted immediately, coordinating the defense. "We can use the nebula to blind their sensors," he said. "Prepare the hull emitters and deflectors. We will make them think we are invisible, then strike at their formation." The Empress observed his tactics with a mixture of awe and understanding. She had never seen a human handle multiple threats at once with such calm and precision. He not only protected her, he taught her how to anticipate danger, think creatively, and act decisively. The battle that followed was swift and decisive. The flagship moved like a ghost through the nebula, evading fire and striking enemy vessels with precision. Marcus coordinated every maneuver, guiding the crew with confidence. When the strike force attempted to regroup, Marcus used deception and clever navigation to force them into an asteroid field, where their ships were damaged and forced to retreat. When the battle ended, the flagship was intact, and the Empress's faith in Marcus had deepened further. She approached him quietly as he checked the ship's systems. "You are more than a soldier," she said softly. "You are a leader, a strategist, and a protector in ways I never imagined." Marcus shook his head. "I do what I can. That is all any soldier can do." "No," she said firmly. "You do more. You inspire loyalty, courage, and trust. That is not common in any species." For the first time, the Empress allowed herself to reflect on her own mistakes. She had relied on advisors who betrayed her, generals who abandoned her, and fleets that scattered when danger approached. Marcus had done none of those things. His loyalty was unwavering, his courage was steadfast, and his ingenuity had saved her life repeatedly. As they prepared to leave the nebula, Marcus turned to her. "We cannot stay hidden forever. The galaxy is changing and the threats are growing. But with careful planning, we can survive and perhaps even reclaim what was lost." The Empress looked out at the stars. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope. Not blind hope, but a calculated, cautious hope, based on the human soldier who had refused to abandon her. He had proven that even when the world turns away, loyalty and courage can endure. She spoke quietly, more to herself than to him. "Perhaps humans are stronger than we ever imagined." Marcus smiled faintly. "Sometimes strength is quiet. You just have to notice it." The Empress turned to him, feeling a sense of gratitude and trust she had not known she could feel. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but as long as Marcus remained by her side, she knew they could endure anything. Together, they could face the rebels, mercenaries, and any betrayal the universe dared to send their way. Outside, the nebula continued to swirl, beautiful and unpredictable. Inside the flagship, a bond had formed that was stronger than any fleet, stronger than any weapon, stronger than any betrayal. Marcus, the human soldier, had chosen to stand by an alien empress when everyone else had abandoned her. And that choice, simple yet profound, might be the key to survival, not just for the Empress, but for the future of her empire. The Empress knew that challenges still awaited them, but she felt a rare confidence. With Marcus's guidance, courage, and unwavering loyalty, she could face the unknown. She could survive. She could endure. And perhaps she could even rise again. The flagship floated at the edge of a quiet star system, distant and hidden from the eyes of most. Yet Marcus knew that peace was temporary. The rebels who had betrayed the Empress were gathering strength, and mercenaries always followed profit. Their enemies would find them eventually, but this time they would face the Empress and her human protector not as fleeing prey, but as a force ready to reclaim what was theirs. The Empress stood on the observation deck, her regal form silhouetted against the stars. "We cannot wait forever," she said quietly. "They will find us, and then—" She did not finish the thought. Marcus joined her, his calm presence grounding her. "Then we will be ready," he said simply. "We have the advantage of preparation, strategy, and determination, and now we are stronger than before. We can face them together." For weeks they had worked tirelessly. The ship had been repaired fully, energy reserves restored, and crew trained to a new level of efficiency. Marcus had taught the alien soldiers human tactics, improvisation, quick thinking, and coordinated action under stress. The Empress had shared her knowledge of fleet strategy and alien technology. Together they had created a combination neither humans nor aliens had seen before, a small force capable of surviving against overwhelming odds. The first sign of trouble came at dawn. Sensors detected a rebel fleet moving into the system, fast and numerous. Marcus studied the readings carefully. "They are strong but predictable," he said. "We can draw them into a trap. They will expect us to hide. We will make them think we are cornered, then strike where they are weakest." The Empress nodded, impressed by his foresight. "And you trust me to follow your lead?" "I do," he replied. "And you trust me to protect you?" She hesitated for a moment, then spoke firmly. "Yes, I trust you completely." The flagship moved quietly, positioning itself near a dense asteroid field at the edge of the system. The rebels followed, unaware of the careful trap being set. Marcus had taught the crew to coordinate shields, weapons, and propulsion to respond instantly. Every crew member knew their role. Every system was ready. The first shots were fired as the rebel fleet entered the asteroid field. Lasers cut through the void, but the flagship weaved between massive rocks, using them as shields while returning fire with precise accuracy. Marcus guided every move, calm and focused, while the Empress directed the remaining crew to repair damaged systems and protect the vital command modules. At one point, a missile streaked toward the flagship faster than any defense system could intercept. Marcus grabbed a manual control panel, rerouted energy, and adjusted the ship's trajectory in a daring maneuver that caused the missile to collide with a massive asteroid instead of the ship. The Empress watched, amazed. Humans had a strange way of thinking, reckless yet brilliant. "Your ingenuity is remarkable," she said quietly. Marcus shrugged. "You survive by thinking differently. Sometimes bold moves save lives. Sometimes caution is deadly." The battle raged for hours. Rebel ships attempted to flank the flagship, but Marcus anticipated every move, using both the asteroid field and human tactics to divide and weaken them. The Empress had begun to adopt his thinking, making decisions with similar boldness and flexibility. Together they acted as one mind, guiding the ship and crew with unmatched coordination. Finally, the flagship emerged from the field largely unharmed, while the rebel fleet had suffered heavy losses. The remaining enemy ships retreated in confusion, unable to regroup effectively. The Empress allowed herself a rare smile. "It is over, for now," she said. Marcus nodded. "For now. But the galaxy is full of threats. We cannot rely on luck alone. Preparation, loyalty, and courage will always be needed." The Empress turned to him, feeling a deep sense of respect and gratitude. "You have proven more than your species. You have proven loyalty, courage, and honor. Even when the galaxy abandoned me, you stayed. That means more than words can express." Marcus looked at her calmly. "I did not do it for praise. I did it because it was right. Because someone needed protection. Because loyalty is stronger than fear." The Empress considered this. She had ruled for decades, witnessed betrayals, and survived countless threats. Yet Marcus's presence had taught her something she had never fully understood. Loyalty and courage could overcome even the greatest odds. A single being, steadfast and brave, could change the course of events, even in a galaxy filled with chaos. In the days that followed, they repaired the flagship completely and sent messages to the few remaining loyal colonies. Slowly, alien soldiers who had once abandoned the Empress began to respond. They came, inspired by the tale of survival and the human soldier who had refused to leave. Marcus had shown them that courage and loyalty were not bound by species, they were universal. The Empress watched as fleets slowly gathered under her banner once again. She realized that the galaxy had underestimated both her and humans. Marcus's actions, his bravery, and his steadfast loyalty had shifted perceptions. Aliens who had thought humans weak now saw their value. Rebels who had believed her powerless now feared the combination of alien leadership and human ingenuity. One evening, the Empress stood with Marcus on the bridge, looking at the assembled fleets on the view screen. "We are ready," she said quietly. Marcus nodded. "We are, and we will face whatever comes together." The final confrontation came the next day. The largest rebel fleet yet appeared, moving swiftly to strike before the Empress could gather her forces. Marcus directed the flagship with calm precision, positioning it at the center of the combined fleet. He coordinated attacks, defended weak points, and guided the Empress through every strategic choice. The Empress had learned much from him, how to anticipate enemy maneuvers, when to act boldly, and how to inspire loyalty in her people. Together they struck at the rebels with precision, outmaneuvering them at every turn. The human soldier's ingenuity complemented her authority, creating a force that was unstoppable. Hours later, the battle ended. The rebel fleet was defeated, scattered across the system, and the Empress's empire stood unbroken. The Empress allowed herself a rare moment of relief. She turned to Marcus, feeling a depth of gratitude and respect she could not put into words. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "Not just for me, but for the Empire. You showed them what humans can do." Marcus smiled faintly. "I only did what I could. You led them. I just helped where I could." The Empress studied him, realizing that humans were capable of greatness she had never imagined. Loyalty, courage, and ingenuity could not be measured in numbers or fleets. They were shown in action, in choices, in the willingness to stand when others abandoned hope. "Marcus," she said finally, her voice firm, "I will honor you for your service, for your loyalty, for staying when everyone else left. You have saved me, the Empire, and perhaps even the galaxy." Marcus looked at her calmly. "I do not need honor. I only need to know that I did right, that I protected life, that I kept my word." "You have done more than keep a word," she replied. "You have shown the galaxy that humans are extraordinary, and you have shown me that trust, courage, and loyalty can overcome any betrayal." The Empress stepped back, looking at the stars outside. She thought of the long journey, the battles, the danger, and the human soldier who had never wavered. Marcus had stood by her when all others abandoned her, and his actions had ensured her survival. She knew that the galaxy would remember him, not just as a human soldier, but as a symbol of bravery and loyalty. Marcus turned to the controls, already preparing the flagship for travel to the next system. "We should move before more threats appear," he said. The Empress nodded. "Yes, but wherever we go, I will not forget what you have done. Your loyalty, courage, and wisdom will be remembered in the history of my people forever." For the first time, Marcus allowed himself a faint smile, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had not acted for glory or recognition, yet the Empress's words carried a weight deeper than any medal. She understood, appreciated, and honored the principles he had lived by: courage, loyalty, and duty. As the flagship left the system, moving toward new adventures and new challenges, the Empress and the human soldier stood side by side. The galaxy was still dangerous, full of threats, betrayals, and unknown perils, but together, they had proven something powerful. Even when everyone else abandons you, one loyal, courageous human can make all the difference. The Empress looked at Marcus and spoke softly. "The galaxy is vast and danger will come again. But I know one thing. As long as you are by my side, we can endure anything." Marcus nodded. "And I will stay, Your Majesty, always." For the first time in a long time, the Empress felt not fear but confidence. She had faced betrayal, survived battles, and endured loss. Yet she had not been alone. Marcus, the human soldier, had stood by her through every trial, and now together they would face the future, undaunted, united, and ready for whatever the galaxy had in store. And so, The human soldier who refused to abandon an alien empress became a legend. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for loyalty, courage, and the simple truth that one being can make a difference, even when all others have turned away. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and within the flagship, hope burned brighter than any weapon or fleet. Marcus and the Empress, bound by trust and courage, moved forward into the unknown, ready to shape the future together.